Philippines, at one time home to the biggest boxing star from Asia in the world, but now it seems that title has been shifted to somewhere else, and that place is Japan. Naoya Inoue's complete domination of every weight class has been a spectacle to watch, and despite unifying his previous weight class, now he wants even more. Making easy work of Fulton, one man stands in his way from becoming a unified champion again, and that man is Marlon Tapales. The much anticipated showdown between Naoya Inoue and Marlon Tapales is only a few days away, but many seem to be counting out Marlon already in this huge fight. So let's take a look at what both of these guys really have to offer. Now, Marlon's not your typical Filipino slugger. He's a crafty southpaw with some real skills that can prove to cause Naoya trouble early on. The first of which is his lead hook counter that he always catches guys with. Now the reason this works so well for him is because he's a southpaw, and in orthodox versus southpaw matchups, your lead hands are directly in front of each other. So simply throwing a jab leaves you open to getting countered already. The moment Marlon's opponent commits to a jab, he counters it by going over their lead hand and lands a hook of his own. This is a good way to really nullify your opponent's jab early on, and when their jab is gone, then that makes things so much easier for you. Once that's taken away, he starts going in on the attack more, and what I really like seeing from him is how he would vary his attacks. He would mix things up to the head, then go down as well to the body. This was especially effective in his fight against Murud Chon, wherein his constant mix-up of attacks would allow him to find openings. Simply touching to the body to bring his opponent's guard down, then punishing him with a headshot. And when coming on the attack, Marlon makes sure to really get his head off the center line when committing to straight punches. This is so that when an opponent throws the same time as him, in this case the jab, he is not hit by it. He has good feints as well, giving his opponents different looks and catching them with a shot that they didn't see coming. Tapales also employs the use of the Philly shell from time to time with varying results. On one hand, he can look like a Filipino Mayweather, deflecting punches with the shoulder roll, making punches miss by just a few inches, leaving his opponents confused as to why they can't land a single punch.
Wow!
And on the other hand, there's the realization that Marlon is in fact not close to Floyd when it comes to defense. Leaving your chin exposed like this with a guy like Naoya would be even riskier. Another big issue with Marlon is that when he gets desperate, he starts throwing these really wild shots from very far off angles, and oftentimes they completely miss the mark. Just no real setup at all with these punches, and throwing like this could create some real openings for Naoya to land a knockout blow. So from what I've seen at least, Marlon is definitely not your typical Filipino slugger that many fans have been accustomed to. He's a crafty southpaw that has some tricks, but will these tricks be enough to defeat a guy like Naoya? Now perhaps the biggest difference you will notice immediately between both guys is the speed. Just everything Naoya does is at 2 times the speed of Marlon, and this doesn't just apply to his punches, but to his footwork as well. My friend Jamie from Boxing Life does a great analysis on the way Naoya trains, and you can really see his Forrest Gump-like training really pay off in the fight. Naoya doesn't do anything that's too unconventional in there, but just repetition after repetition of the same techniques over and over again has turned even the simplest of punches devastating. Just look at how he throws his jab straight. It's usually straight down the middle, but it's thrown at such a high speed that even when the punch doesn't land clean, it still takes the wind out of you. Not only his fists, but his footwork is just as fast. For a moment, you think you're safe, and out of nowhere, he can completely lunge at you from a far off distance. He not only uses his footwork as an offensive means, but also as a defensive means. Simply taking a quick step back to dodge punches, and just like Marlon, Naoya is also a master of that counter lead hook. Just as good as mixing up his shots, and even better when it comes to body punches. Using the uppercut as a means to make the opponent block his head so that he can create an opening for a left hook to deliver. The reality, however, is that Naoya can just do everything Marlon does, but better, faster, more precise, and he can also do more. I think the moment the fight starts, you're gonna see just how much of a speed difference there is, and Marlon is going to have to deal with something he has never really dealt with before, and that is the very spring-like type footwork of Naoya. Naoya is just so mobile with his feet and can explode at you out of nowhere. Eventually, I think Marlon's going to start getting desperate to land, and he's gonna throw these very wide shots and leave himself open for Naoya to get a knockout on him. Naoya will catch him in between the shot because he throws very quick straight down the middle, similar to what he did with Maloney. But in the world of boxing, you never know what can happen, and maybe Marlon is working on something very special for Naoya.